My mom told me, "You're just dramatic like your father. That's why no one likes you." So I paid off my dad's debt, took him to Europe, and posted every photo with best parent ever. She hasn't stopped calling since. I hadn't spoken to my dad in 7 years when I found out he was living out of a 2002 Buick with a cracked windshield and a box of Polaroids in the trunk. The last time I saw him, he was drunk, barefoot on our front lawn, crying while my mom screamed through the screen door to get gone before the neighbors call someone. I was 14. Mom, Lisa, 54 female, made sure I remembered that day like gospel. You don't get to love someone who chose a bottle over their own family. She didn't say it gently either. It was one of those lines that felt rehearsed, spat like venom. And to be fair, for a while I believed her. I'm Rachel, 27 female. I work in tech support for a medical device company. I've got a one-bedroom apartment in Charlotte, a cat named Dennis, and a small addiction to puzzle games that make my phone battery cry. I'm not dramatic, not really, but if you ask my mom, she'll roll her eyes and say I've always had a flair for the theatrical, followed immediately by some dig about how I get it from my father. It was always like that. I couldn't cry without it being manipulative like your dad. Couldn't laugh too hard, or I was being obnoxious just like him. If I got anxious, "You're just like your father, always making a scene." She didn't hit me, but the way she cut into me, that left marks no one could see. She remarried when I was 16 to Don, 58 male. He was a real estate agent who smiled too big and never learned how to knock. He wasn't abusive, but he had this way of dismissing me like I was a temporary roommate, not her child. Every dinner became a polite hostage situation. If I disagreed with something, I was being dramatic again. Mom never stood up for me. "You know how she gets," she'd say to him, almost like I wasn't in the room. So yeah, I moved out the minute I turned 18, stayed gone, didn't look back. Until last November, I was scrolling Reddit of all things, bored during a tech outage at work, when a random throwaway post caught my eye. Some guy was asking for advice on how to fix a cracked phone with no tools, and mentioned he was posting from a McDonald's parking lot because he lived out of his car. It wasn't the post itself that stopped me. It was the photo he attached, some broken Galaxy sitting on his thigh, and beneath it, in the blurry back seat, was a box. On it was scrawled in Sharpie, R plus L 1999, in my mom's handwriting. I stared at that box for 10 full minutes. I hadn't seen my dad in almost a decade, but that stupid box, our old photo box from the attic, told me everything I needed to know. I made a burner account and messaged him. He responded in 10 minutes, just said, "Rachel." I called in sick the next day, drove 4 hours to a Waffle House near Asheville, and there he was. Gray beard, hunched posture, hands that trembled when he picked up his coffee, but his eyes lit up like Christmas when he saw me. And I cried. Not because he looked broken, but because he still remembered how I liked my hash browns. He told me everything over 3 cups of burnt coffee, how he got clean 6 years ago, how he worked odd jobs until arthritis made it impossible, how he'd tried to write me but didn't know where I lived, how Mom never returned any of his calls, how he never stopped thinking about me. When I got back home, I called Mom. I told her I'd seen Dad. She didn't ask how he was, didn't ask if he was okay. She just said, "You always were dramatic like him. That's why no one likes you." And then she hung up. That was the moment something inside me snapped. "You want to call me dramatic? Fine. Let me show you how dramatic I can be." And I didn't call her back. Not after that. I sat on the floor of my apartment for hours, just blank. You ever get hit with a sentence so cruel it feels like your entire childhood folds in on itself? That was mine. "That's why no one likes you." I kept replaying it over and over. Not even just what she said, how casually she said it. Like she was commenting on the weather. Like she believed it with her whole chest and thought I already knew. And the worst part? A little part of me did believe it. Because that's the kind of thing she'd been priming me to think my entire life. I started remembering all the ways she'd chipped away at me over the years. Not in some loud, abusive way. No, my mom was more refined than that. She was a master at the surgical insult. The, "Are you sure that's what you're wearing?" before a school dance. The, "Maybe if you weren't so emotional, your friends wouldn't stop inviting you." The, "You're exhausting," Rachel said like it was some universal truth. And then there was my dad. Jason, 57 male. A recovering alcoholic, yes. But also the guy who taught me how to whistle with a blade of grass. Who used to draw stick figure comics of our family when I was too sick for school. Who left, yeah, but never stopped loving me. And now he was sleeping in a Buick in winter, while she sipped boxed wine in a split level in the suburbs, acting like she'd won some prize. I started visiting him more, brought him groceries, helped him find a safer parking lot to sleep in. We'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. One night, he showed me an old voicemail he'd saved. It was me, age 6, screaming, "I love you, Daddy," before the beep. He had it still, like a talisman. Then came the part that lit the fuse. We were eating fast food in his car when he mentioned offhand that he owed about $6,000 in old debt from a DUI and a hospital bill. He said it like it was just fact, not a burden. "It's fine. he said. I don't have a credit score anyway. Then he laughed. And it broke me. Because this man wasn't lazy. He was just broken by a system. And a woman who decided he didn't deserve redemption. I had the money. Not tons, but enough. And I couldn't stop thinking about how many times Mom had paid for Don's new golf clubs or my stepbrother's third try at community college. But not once had she even pretended to care about the man she used to call her soulmate. So I paid it. Quietly. No announcement, no drama. Just cleared his debt and helped him apply for a passport. Then I told him we were going to Europe. He thought I was joking. I wasn't. I booked us 2 tickets to Paris. I used my saved-up PTO, cashed out a chunk of my emergency fund, and I took my dad, my real parent, on the trip of a lifetime. And I posted every single photo. Dad holding a croissant like it was made of gold. Dad smiling at the Eiffel Tower. Dad on a boat in Venice. Dad laughing so hard he choked on gelato. Every post had the same caption, "Best parent ever, hard eyes." It was petty, I know, but it felt so good. Like a scream I'd been holding in since I was 10. By the time we hit Florence, my phone had 17 missed calls from my mother. By Rome? She'd started texting Don. He messaged me, "Your mom's not sleeping. What did you do?" I smiled. That was just the beginning. When we landed back in the States, my phone lit up like a slot machine in Vegas. Missed calls, voicemails, texts from unknown numbers. Mom had gone full scorched earth while I was away. The most recent message read, "You've humiliated me, Rachel. Take those posts down, or don't bother coming to Thanksgiving." I laughed out loud in the airport. Because here's the thing, I wasn't planning on going to Thanksgiving anyway. I had no intention of pretending anymore. Pretending we were a family. Pretending she hadn't spent the better part of 2 decades eroding me with every eye roll and snide comment. Pretending she hadn't rewritten history to make herself the victim and my father the villain. Pretending she didn't call me dramatic every time I dared to feel something. I left her on red. That silence, that was the most powerful thing I'd ever given myself. A week later, she started dragging in reinforcements. My Aunt Kathy, Mom's older sister and resident flying monkey, texted me, "Your mother is devastated. You know how fragile she is. Posting those pictures was cruel," followed by, "Call her. Be the bigger person. Be the bigger person." The phrase made me want to scream. I'd been the bigger person my whole damn life. I was the one who stayed quiet at Christmas when she gave me an old sweater and gave my cousin $500 for college books. I was the one who never cried in front of her because she called it emotional manipulation. I was the one who kept pretending that her silence wasn't loud, that her love wasn't conditional. Now suddenly I'm supposed to be the bigger person again? For what, because I posted happy vacation photos with my dad? Nah, not this time. And then came the escalation. Because my mother doesn't know how to lose quietly. 2 days after I ignored Kathy's message, Mom left a comment under one of the Europe photos. A public comment. I guess being a good mother isn't as photogenic as being an alcoholic's enabler. Glad you're proud of yourself. That comment stayed up for 22 minutes. Long enough for my friends to screenshot it. Long enough for my coworkers who followed me on Instagram to message asking if everything was okay. But not long enough for her to realize she'd just poured gasoline on the flames. I screenshotted it, archived it, and sent it to Dad. He didn't say anything right away. Just stared at the screen, jaw tight, then said, "She hasn't changed a damn bit." He took a deep breath, then added, "You know, I always thought she hated me. But she just hates not being the center of the story." That line, that right there, that was it. Because suddenly everything made sense. She didn't care that I was reconnecting with my dad. She cared that she wasn't the one getting the praise, that someone else had gotten to be the hero, that I had written a version of our family story that didn't orbit around her, and she couldn't stand it. So I did the most dangerous thing a daughter like me could do. I kept living. I went out with friends, posted more photos, smiled harder, let the light in, and the more I smiled, the more her world started to crack. But I wasn't ready for what she'd do next. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. It started with the package on my doorstep. No return address. Just a plain brown box, taped like someone was trying to seal in a curse. Inside was a stack of photo albums from my childhood, ones I hadn't seen in years. Pages of me as a toddler in Halloween costumes, me and Mom at the beach, me asleep on Dad's chest with a bottle in my hand. At first, it looked innocent. Sentimental even. Until I got to the last album. It was titled Before He Left, and I swear my blood ran cold just seeing the label. Inside were photos I didn't even know existed. Dad passed out on the couch, empty bottles beside him, me at maybe 6 years old, frowning, blurry in the background. One photo had a note taped to it. "This is the man you call best parent ever now." She sent it to remind me who he was, to manipulate me, to punish me. I sat on my floor and stared at that photo for a long time, and for a split second, I felt what she wanted me to feel. Doubt, shame, like maybe I was betraying some sacred truth by loving him anyway. But then I remembered the man I just spent 10 days in Europe with, who insisted on learning how to say thank you in every local language, who cried in the Vatican because no one's ever looked at me like I belonged somewhere before, who spent 2 hours writing a postcard to a friend he hadn't spoken to in 15 years. That man wasn't the monster in those photos. He was that man once, but he isn't anymore. And maybe that's the difference between me and her. I believe people can change. She believes they can be used. I packed the albums back up, resealed the box, and dropped it off at the Goodwill donation bin on 8th Street. But Mom wasn't done. That weekend, she showed up at my apartment building. Didn't knock, didn't text. Just stood in the lobby, buzzing my unit like a broken alarm until my neighbor finally let her in out of confusion. I opened my door to find her already halfway down the hallway, makeup smudged, wearing her Sunday church heels like she'd sprinted through a war zone to get here. Her eyes were wild. She didn't say hello. She started yelling. You think this is funny? You think humiliating your mother online is some kind of game? You want to parade around with that man like he didn't ruin our lives? I froze. The hallway echoed her voice like a megaphone. My neighbor peered out from behind his peephole. Mom, you need to leave, I said quietly. She pushed past me into the apartment. I physically stepped in front of her, blocking the kitchen. You need to leave. Now. She looked around like she couldn't believe I was the one saying it. Like she still saw me as the 12-year-old who cried when she said I was too sensitive to handle her honesty. And then she lost it. Started sobbing, like screaming sobbing, saying how I was ungrateful, how I'd been brainwashed, how Dawn was ashamed of me, how I was turning into my pathetic father. She grabbed one of my framed photos off the shelf, me and Dad at the Louvre, and smashed it on the floor. That's when I grabbed my phone and dialed. Not 911. Not yet. I called the building manager. Hey, it's Rachel. My mother's in my unit without permission. I need her removed. By the time they escorted her out, she was sobbing so hard she had to lean on the railing. Not out of grief, but out of rage. That night, I got my first anonymous message on Facebook. You should be ashamed of what you're doing to your own mother. And then the second, he'll hurt you again. Just like he hurt her. She was recruiting people now, mobilizing the pity parade. I didn't reply to a single one, but I kept the screenshots. Because I wasn't playing her game anymore, I was building a case. Update 1. Okay, wow. So, I was not expecting this kind of response. I posted that last part, closed my laptop, went to reheat some sad leftover lasagna, and came back to 800 plus comments, 37 DMs, and a Reddit inbox that looked like a war zone. First of all, thank you. Seriously. Some of y'all made me laugh so hard I choked on a meatball. Shout out to the person who said, next time she shows up, hit her with the emotional restraining order. Inner peace. I'm stealing that. But let me be real. Some of your comments hit harder than I was ready for, especially the ones that asked, why are you still trying to reason with someone who sees your pain as a performance? Or the one that said, you don't owe your mother the opportunity to harm you just because she gave birth to you. Yeah, that one gutted me. Because the truth is, I've spent most of my adult life hoping, aching, for her to love me in a way that wasn't transactional. I wanted her to see me, not just the parts of me she could use, criticize, or weaponize. I wanted her approval like it was a currency. And the moment I gave it to someone else, my father, the man she branded as the villain, she turned into a hurricane of cruelty. Some of y'all asked what I was planning to do next. And, well, I did it. Remember those screenshots I mentioned? The nasty Facebook messages, the smashed photo frame, her showing up uninvited? I compiled everything, dated it, documented it, even got a statement from my neighbor about her screaming in the hallway. I filed for a temporary restraining order on Monday. It was granted. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it to protect myself, to draw a line in the sand and finally say, enough. But that's not even the best part. You know how people said I should post more photos with Dad? I went one better. I printed the photo of us at the Louvre, blew it up to a poster. Underneath, I wrote, he was there when it mattered, framed it, and mailed it to her. Certified mail. Signature required. Petty? Maybe. But it felt like reclaiming something she never let me have. My truth. She signed for it 2 days ago. I haven't heard a word since. Until this morning. She posted a cryptic message on Facebook. One of those, I gave everything to someone who stabbed me in the back kind of posts. Tagged no one. Got sympathy from her book club and 3 of her wine mom friends, but I didn't respond. And I won't, because the best revenge is peace she can't poison. Also, taking your father to Italy while she spirals into passive-aggressive meme warfare. Stay tuned, y'all! It gets messier. The restraining order was just my opening move. Next up, the family dinner that blew the whole thing sky high. It was my cousin's birthday that cracked the dam wide open. Her name's Olivia, 32 female, one of the few family members who ever saw through my mom's crap without blinking. She invited me to her backyard cookout in Raleigh. A casual thing. Burgers, beer, maybe cornhole. I hadn't seen her in months. Not since she got promoted to assistant DA and started juggling murder trials like they were jury duty. But I went. mostly to be around people who didn't throw wine glasses when they didn't get the attention they wanted. What I didn't know, what no one told me, was that Mom was going to be there. She showed up an hour late, sunglasses on indoors, Dawn trailing behind her like a hostage in a poorly lit Lifetime movie. I was mid-bite into a hot dog when I heard her voice. Fake sweet and syrupy. "Oh, Rachel's here." The whole yard went silent. I stood slowly. Olivia looked at me like, "Do you want me to kick her out?" But I shook my head. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Mom slithered over in her floral blouse and 2 red lipstick, all smiles for the crowd. "Sweetheart," she cooed, "I thought you were still in Italy with your project." That last word landed like spit on the floor. I smiled. "Nope, Europe was last month. I've been back. You would have known if you hadn't blocked me." She actually laughed. Laughed like we were doing stand-up. "I didn't block you. Don't be dramatic." Olivia, bless her, cut in like a lawyer. "Lisa." She literally showed me the screenshot of you blocking her on 3 apps. The laugh died. Mom's eyes narrowed. "Well, I needed space, Rachel. After what you did." "What I did?" I stepped closer. "You mean taking my dad on a vacation I paid for? Posting photos with someone who didn't emotionally blackmail me for 30 years? That's the crime?" She flinched at the word blackmail. "Good. Around us, the family was doing that awkward shuffle people do when there's a fight at a wedding. No one wants to leave, but they don't want to look like they're enjoying it either." Mom straightened her back like she was testifying. "He left us. He abandoned you." "No," I said louder now. "He left you. He never left me. You just made sure I never knew that." And that's when Dawn snapped. "He sent letters," he barked, surprising everyone, including my mom. "For years. She never let you see them." The backyard went dead silent. Even the dog stopped drinking from the kiddie pool. I stared at her. "Is that true?" Mom said nothing, just froze like a glitch in a video game. Then she muttered, "You don't understand what it was like." I took a step back. My heart was thundering in my chest. "You're right. I don't understand what it's like to lie to your own daughter for years just to win." That's when Olivia pulled me inside, gently but urgently. "You need to see this." She took me into her home office and pulled up a folder on her laptop. "When you posted those photos, I got curious," she said, "about the custody stuff. I pulled some sealed documents." She turned the screen to me. There were emails, letters, a legal request from my dad to modify visitation when I was 15. Denied. Because of a character reference written by my mother. She told the court I had anxiety and didn't handle transitions well. Claimed I'd asked not to see him. I never said that. Never even knew it was an option. My mom had erased me from my dad's life using legalese and lies. I sat there, staring at the proof. Years of wondering why he stopped fighting, why he didn't show up to my graduation, why he missed my birthday for 5 straight years. She made him disappear, and suddenly, all the cracks in my memory started glowing like neon signs. The way she'd scoff anytime I asked about him. The way she'd change the subject or say, "Let's not ruin today," like his presence was a threat. But now I had proof, and she had no idea what I was about to do with it. I posted the emails. Not all of them, just enough. 3 screenshots. One from my dad, dated when I was 13, asking if he could attend my school play. Another of my mom's email to the court, saying I'd requested no contact for my emotional safety. And one more, a scanned letter from my dad, never sent, where he wrote, "I hope one day you'll know I tried." I posted them on Facebook, on my Instagram story. Tagged no one, named no names, just captioned it. For anyone who ever wondered why I stopped going to family holidays. The internet did the rest. Cousins started texting me. Olivia reposted it. A few old family friends messaged things like, "I always wondered why Jason wasn't around. He loved you so much." My godmother left a single comment. "Lisa, how could you?" It was nuclear fallout. Exactly what I wanted. But the message that wrecked me? It came from my little step-cousin, Sadie, who's 17 now. She messaged, "I always thought you were the weird one. Like the too emotional girl. That's what your mom said. But I read that letter from your dad and I started crying in the school bathroom. I didn't know parents could be that cruel." She added a broken heart emoji and, "I'm so sorry." I didn't respond for a while. Just sat on my couch, shaking. Because the truth is, I didn't post those screenshots to burn bridges. I posted them so I'd never gaslight myself again. And yeah, maybe a little bit to burn her carefully constructed reputation to ash. But then came the voicemail. 3 minutes and 17 seconds of unfiltered rage. She was screaming, actually screaming. "You think you're some kind of hero, Rachel? You're a liar. A manipulative, ungrateful brat. You have no idea what I gave up for you. Posting private family matters like you're some influencer with trauma clout. You want to humiliate me? Fine, you've won. I hope you're happy playing victim while everyone turns on me." She started sobbing by the end. Deep, ugly sobs. The kind that used to scare me as a kid. Then she switched gears. "If you take that down, I'll forgive you. We can move past this. Just take it down. You owe me that." I don't owe her a damn thing. I didn't respond. But she wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to over 100 missed calls, 10 voicemails, and a giant red X spray painted across my apartment door. That was the moment it went from drama to war. I called the cops. They took a report, said they couldn't prove who did it, but let's be honest, how many people in my life have a vendetta, a grudge, and access to discount hardware store paint? I got the door repainted that afternoon. Then I got to work. I drafted a letter to the family, not just the public one, I mean the private one, the kind that makes its way into group chats and dinner conversations for years. I included copies of the court statements, the timeline of her interference, and a photo of the ruined door with a note, "This is what loving her gets you." I sent it to every blood relative I still had an address for, but I saved one last copy for her. I slid it into a padded envelope. Inside, I added a thumb drive with the voicemail recording, labeled the file Mother of the Year, dropped it off at her doorstep, then blocked her number. All of them. Second update coming soon, because guess who got served with a cease and desist? And guess who responded by putting a billboard up in their hometown? Yeah, that happened. Update 2. South. Apparently sending a packet of court documents and an audio file titled Mother of the Year to your narcissist mother's suburban doorstep while she's mid-neighborhood brunch phase is frowned upon in certain HOA circles. Because 2 weeks later, I got served. A cease and desist. I opened the envelope at work during lunch, greasy fingers and all, expecting another spammy insurance mailer, and instead found a letter on actual legal stationery accusing me of intentional defamation of character, malicious emotional harm, and targeted harassment via digital platforms. It even had her new lawyer's letterhead on it. Donnelly and Stratton, LLP. Guess who paid for the Stratton in that equation? Hint, it wasn't her. Now, here's where things get almost funny. The letter told me to remove all defamatory content about my mother within 72 hours or face civil litigation. It also referenced online posts that have created undue emotional distress and damaged the client's standing in her community. Her standing? You mean the standing where she hosts wine and cheese book clubs and badmouths her own child for having mental breakdowns over minor disagreements? Sure, Lisa, but I wasn't about to go full scorched earth without checking my corners. So I called Olivia, remember cousin/legal powerhouse, and asked her if I needed to worry. She laughed. I wish she'd sue. You have documentation, screenshots, audio, court records. You could countersue for emotional abuse and probably win, but she won't. This isn't about court. It's about fear. Then she paused and said, if you really want to destroy her image, hit the one thing she cares about more than control. So I did. I bought ad space on a billboard, dead center of our hometown's main street, facing the Starbucks where she used to brag about my SAT scores to strangers while quietly telling me my body wasn't interview appropriate. The billboard? A black and white photo of me and my dad in Venice. We're laughing, mid-gelato bite. It's not posed, not curated, just joy. The caption? Some stories have been edited. I'm just telling mine. No names, no tags, nothing actionable. But oh, did people know? The messages started pouring in within hours. Old teachers, childhood neighbors, even a woman who used to babysit me. Rachel, I always wondered why your mom acted like you were broken. I'm so glad you're speaking. By the end of the week, Mom took a leave of absence from her real estate office. Don moved out 2 days later. Apparently, he saw the thumb drive. He emailed me, just said, I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You weren't dramatic. You were surviving. And now, she's gone quiet. Not because she's sorry, not because she learned, but because her mask slipped. And now everyone sees what's underneath. I'm not telling this story for applause or pity. I'm telling it because for the first time in my entire life, I feel free. Free from the guilt, from the manipulation, from wondering if I'm the problem every time someone refuses to love me with decency. If you're reading this and you've got a Lisa in your life, you don't owe them your silence. You don't owe them the stage. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is walk off set and let the villain stand there alone, screaming into the wings. I'm good now. Me and Dad are planning our next trip, thinking Iceland. And guess what? Every photo's getting posted with the same damn caption, best parent ever. The morning after the billboard went up, I found a dead bouquet on my doorstep. Not delivered, not in water, just dumped. Half-wilted roses tied together with twine, like a funeral arrangement bought in a panic. No note, no card, just the lingering scent of something meant to look like an apology and rot, like a threat. I didn't touch them, just stared. Because that's what she always did when she lost control, reached for symbols, flowers when she'd said something unforgivable. Old baby photos after a blow-up. Once, after screaming that I was selfish like him, she left my childhood ballet shoes on my bed. Like she was saying, remember who you used to be before you disappointed me. This question mark, this was just her latest performance. A passive-aggressive Hail Mary thrown from the 50-yard line of a ruined relationship. I called Dad. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just said, "Want me to come over?" And within an hour, he was on my couch, sipping gas station coffee, watching me pace while Dennis the cat judged us both from atop the fridge. "I think she's unraveling," I said. Dad nodded. "She's unraveling because she can't narrate anymore." And that's when the idea hit me. "You want to talk symbols, Lisa? Let's talk about the house. It's the one she got in the divorce. The one I grew up in. The one with the warped porch swing and the crack in the kitchen tile shaped like a lightning bolt. It had been up for sale for months. Olivia told me it wasn't moving. Bad market, too many leaks, no one wants to deal with a fixer. So I made a few calls. Quiet ones. Through friends of friends. 2 weeks later, I placed an anonymous offer through a Shell LLC. Cash, below asking, accepted. And just like that, I owned the house I cried in. The house she once slammed a door in my face and said, "You're too much," just like him. The house where she rewrote my father out of our lives and turned grief into a weapon. The papers were signed on a Wednesday. I gave the keys to my dad on Thursday. "You want to come with me?" he asked. First time back in almost 20 years. But I shook my head. "Nah, this one's for you." He stood on the porch a long time that day. Just stood, hands in his jacket, staring at the door like it might recognize him. Then he went inside. That weekend he gutted it, cleared every inch, tore down the old curtains, donated the furniture, painted over the pale blue walls she once called soothing, but used mostly to frame her lectures. Then he burned the last piece, the mantle photo, the one of me as a baby, held by her with a forced smile. She kept it even after the divorce, even after I moved out. A photo weaponized as proof that she'd tried. He sent me a picture of the fire pit after, captioned, "Therapy, but cheaper." And then, because we're us, he added, "You want to use the space? Artist retreat? Wine weekends? Trauma brunch?" I laughed so hard I cried. He was claiming it. We both were. Not for revenge. Not anymore. But to prove to ourselves that we weren't the broken ones. She hasn't found out yet. But when she does, she'll know. Because I'm going to hang a new sign on that front door. A small wooden plaque. It'll say, "Best parent ever, established, Isanasibo Nyon." And I'll post a photo of that too. The day she found out, the world went quiet. I was at work, answering emails in that dead space between lunch and quitting time, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before pressing play. It was her. No screaming this time. No crying. Just silence. Then a whisper, like someone talking in a church they haven't been welcome in for years. "You bought the house." Not a question. A statement. Heavy, fragile. Like if she spoke too loud, her version of the world would collapse entirely. "You really gave it to him," she said. "After everything. After what he did to us." There was a long pause. Then she added bitterly, "I hope you're proud of yourself." And just before it ended, a sound I hadn't heard since I was 11, her breath catching in her throat. A tiny involuntary whimper, the sound of someone realizing they lost the war they started. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say, but later that night I drove to the house. Dad was on the porch with a cup of coffee, wrapped in an old hoodie, legs kicked up on the railing like he'd lived there forever. He looked up when he saw me and smiled. "She knows, huh?" I nodded. "Guess so." He handed me a cup. "To new chapters." We sat there in the silence. The kind that used to feel suffocating but now felt earned. Inside, the house was half finished. Paint cans in the hallway, new light fixtures and boxes, a wall knocked out between the kitchen and dining room, but it already felt better, like it had exhaled after years of holding its breath. On the living room wall, where her mirror used to hang, Dad had mounted a new frame. Inside was a photo of us in front of the Trevi fountain. I'm laughing. He's blinking at the sun. It's not perfect, but it's real. And underneath, burned into the wood. Survived, reclaimed, loved. The next week, my mom deactivated all her social media. Aunt Kathy sent one last text. "She's not doing well, says she doesn't know who she is anymore." I didn't reply. Because here's the thing no one tells you about revenge. The most satisfying part isn't the screaming. It's the silence that follows. When the lies stop echoing. When the villain realizes no one's reading her script anymore. When you finally walk off stage, and they're stuck under the spotlight, alone. I left the porch that night with paint on my shoes, dust in my lungs, and a peace I hadn't felt since childhood. I'm not healed, not fully. Some nights I still dream of her standing in the hallway, arms crossed, saying, "You're just dramatic, like your father." But now, when I wake up, I remind myself, that drama? It built a new life, it broke the cycle, it saved me. And now, it's hers to sit with. Alone. Because me and Dad, we've got Iceland to plan.